The snow didn't ask permission before it buried the neighborhood, neither did the trouble that followed, and this story would expose a shocking truth no one expected. Before dawn, white silence covered the streets like a warning. While most residents stayed inside, one man stepped out with a plow and a simple goal: help. His name was Daniel, a quiet homeowner who believed community mattered more than rules written on paper. The blizzard had hit hard, trapping cars, blocking driveways, and turning sidewalks into walls of ice. Without being asked, Daniel began clearing paths, starting with elderly neighbors who couldn't leave their homes. He worked for hours, hands numb, face stinging, refusing payment when people offered cash or coffee. To him, it wasn't charity. It was responsibility. But while the snow disappeared, unseen eyes were watching. The HOA board, warm inside their homes, noticed the noise and movement before sunrise. By the time daylight arrived, the streets were passable, children could walk safely, and emergency vehicles had room to move. Neighbors praised Daniel quietly, grateful but cautious. They knew how the HOA treated anyone who stepped outside approved behavior. What Daniel didn't know was that a rule buried deep in the HOA handbook would soon be used against him. And by sunset, a good deed would be labeled a violation, setting off a chain of events that would trap the entire neighborhood in a storm far worse than snow. The letter arrived before the snow finished melting. It promised consequences, and it hinted at power the HOA believed it fully controlled. Daniel opened the envelope at his kitchen table, still sore from the long night. The notice was formal, cold, and final. He was fined $800 for unauthorized snow removal activity during restricted hours. According to the HOA, using equipment before 7 a.m. violated noise and liability rules. Daniel read it twice, then a third time, certain he misunderstood. He hadn't charged anyone. He hadn't damaged property. He had helped. He walked outside and saw neighbors staring from windows, already aware. Word traveled fast when punishment followed kindness. That afternoon, the HOA president appeared with a clipboard and a rehearsed tone, explaining rules mattered more than intentions. Daniel asked a simple question: why was emergency safety ignored? The answer was colder than the storm itself. Rules are rules, she said. Daniel felt something shift. Not anger, but clarity. He thanked her, closed his door, and did something unexpected. He pulled out old property documents he hadn't touched in years. Papers from before the HOA existed. Documents his father once told him never to lose. As he read deeper, the snow outside began to fall again, lightly this time, as if the storm itself was waiting to see what Daniel would do next. The fine wasn't the real mistake. Ignoring what Daniel owned was the one that would change everything. Buried in the paperwork was an easement agreement older than the HOA. It granted Daniel access and control over a private service road used by the neighborhood for emergency exit during severe weather. The HOA assumed it belonged to them. It didn't. Daniel sat back, breathing slowly, understanding the weight of what he held. That road was the only alternative when the main entrance was blocked by snow. And according to the agreement, maintenance of that road was Daniel's responsibility alone. No one else could touch it. The next morning, another storm warning was issued. Heavy snow. Worse than before. The HOA sent notices reminding residents not to remove snow themselves. They planned to handle it. But Daniel didn't move. He didn't plow. He didn't touch the service road. Snow piled high, sealing it shut. By evening, cars were stuck, emergency access vanished, and panic grew. The HOA scrambled, calling contractors, but none could legally clear the road without Daniel's permission. Phones rang unanswered. Daniel watched quietly as flashing lights stopped at blocked paths. He wasn't celebrating. He was waiting. Because sometimes, the only way to be heard is to stop helping. By nightfall, the neighborhood was frozen in more ways than one, and the HOA finally realized control without understanding is dangerous. Residents gathered near the main gate, frustrated and scared. Children needed medicine. Workers needed to leave. The HOA president demanded answers, her voice shaking as she called Daniel again. This time, he answered. Calmly, he explained the easement, the documents, and the fine. Silence followed. She accused him of being cruel. Daniel didn't argue. He reminded her that he had helped for free, been punished, and then told to stop. He had simply complied. The truth spread fast. Neighbors who once stayed silent now spoke up. They remembered the cleared driveways, the kindness, the refusal of payment. The HOA board stood exposed, their authority weakened by their own choices. Emergency services advised resolving the issue immediately. The only solution was clear. The fine had to be withdrawn. The rule had to change. And Daniel had to be asked, not ordered, to help again. Snow continued falling as the decision hung in the air, heavy with consequences. Power shifted not with shouting, but with understanding, and the neighborhood watched as pride finally gave way to reason. The HOA board met that night in emergency session. No cameras. No speeches. Just fear and facts. They voted to revoke the fine, issue a written apology, and formally recognize Daniel's easement rights. A representative came to his door, eyes lowered, tone respectful. Daniel listened, then asked for one thing: transparency. No more hidden rules. No more punishment without discussion. The agreement was signed before midnight. Only then did Daniel start his plow. He cleared the service road first, then the main streets, working until dawn again. This time, neighbors joined him, shovels in hand, united by shared responsibility. When the snow finally stopped, something else had melted too. The idea that authority mattered more than people was gone. But one final twist still waited to be revealed. The apology wasn't the end, it was the beginning of accountability no one expected. Weeks later, the HOA announced new elections. Several board members stepped down, including the president. Daniel didn't run. He didn't need to. His actions had already rewritten the rules. New policies were introduced, protecting volunteers and encouraging cooperation. The neighborhood changed. People talked again. Helped again. Trusted again. The snowblower that once caused conflict now symbolized unity. But Daniel kept one copy of the fine letter, framed on his wall. Not out of bitterness, but as a reminder. Kindness doesn't need permission, and authority should never forget who it serves. The storm had passed. But its lesson stayed. The blizzard faded into memory, but the truth remained clear. One good deed, punished unfairly, revealed the power of knowing your rights. Daniel never asked for recognition. He only wanted fairness. By standing firm without anger, he showed an entire community what leadership really looks like. The HOA learned that rules without humanity collapse under pressure. Neighbors learned that silence protects nothing. And one man proved that doing the right thing, even when punished, can change everything. The snow returned the following winter, but this time, no one waited to be told what to do. They worked together, early and freely, because they remembered the cost of forgetting compassion. And that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.